When threading a needle, you need the yarn, a birdie, and a needle. Bend your birdie in half. Take your birdie around the string. The open end will not go through the needle. The closed fold will. Thread the birdie through. Take the birdie off. Pull this end all the way through and tie a knot. To start a basket, it works best to work the coiling core into the circular shape before you start wrapping it. Then to start it, you take the end of the thread that does not have the needle on it, you loop it in half so there's a small loop at the end, about 2 inches up from the end of your coiling core. You place the needle, the string, hold it with your non-dominant hand. Use your dominant hand to start wrapping. Going to wrap all the way to the end of the coiling core. Be sure to close over the string so then you cannot see its end. You're going to go all the way until it will not stay on the coiling core. You want to wrap as tight as possible. It starts to fall off, so I'm going to use my non-dominant hand to bend it in. Then I'm going to start wrapping it together. You have to pinch tightly. If it starts to come off, then lose that stitch. Wrap around 3 or 4 times. Then you're going to start wrapping back up the string and then work to bend this together. Once you're to a spot where this end lines up with the hole, you can put your first stitch in. To make your very first stitch, you want your string down so it's coming out the bottom in between the cracks. You're going to go up through the bottom and you're going to go to the right of the stitch. If I place it to the left, the stitch will fall out. If I place it to the right, the stitch will stay in. And pull tight. Then you're going to wrap 6 to 8 times. Pinch it closed. Should be coming out the bottom. So I come up through the bottom. And again, go to the right. See the opening of the stitch. Pull tight. Wrap again, 6 to 8 times. Push tightly. It's coming out the bottom, up through the middle, to the side. Continue the pattern of 6 to 8 reps. And continue doing the stitch up through the bottom to the right of the stitch. To start a new string on your basket, always end with a stitch. Never end with a wrap, end with a stitch. Cut off your old string, attach your needle to the new string, take the end without the needle, place it horizontally on your coiling core with the last piece. Hold them down with your thumb and then begin wrapping. Eventually it will get covered up, but do your stitch like normal. And you're ready to keep moving along. This will get covered, but that's how you start a new string. When you run out of coiling core, mine, I'm just showing you this, but your string should be about up to here, or you should only have this much left on your basket before changing. You're going to take a new piece of coiling core, make sure that the ends are cut at an angle so that they piece together. You're going to take a piece of masking tape, start at an angle, place them together. Try and wrap it tightly so there's not a big bump where you have transitioned to a new piece. The key is making sure that your cords are at that angle so they piece together instead of two blunt ends. It doesn't matter which way you wrap. Eventually, when your basket gets larger, it's easier to go over this way. At the beginning, it doesn't matter because it is so small. You just need to make sure that your string, before you do a stitch, is in between the two layers. Do not try and start a stitch with your string way out here. It has to be sandwiched in between the two layers. So I'm going to wrap my 6. They're in between, the string is in between the two layers. Now I'm going to go to the closest valley. And then come back through the right. To end your basket, make sure you are happy with the height, and then about 2 inches from the end of your cord, you are going to cut it at a slowly sloping angle. So it works best, you're cutting about half, and you're cutting a small amount off the top. So it's like you are splicing two pieces together, but you want it even longer of a slope going down. So then it gradually fades into the basket instead of being an abrupt ending. After you have trimmed your last piece down so it's a gradual decline instead of a blunt ending, continue your stitch until you hit the slope. So I've done the 6 wrap and stitch. The last thing I did was a stitch. What you're gonna do now is a wrap stitch around this layer and the next one. So instead of doing an 8 stitch, you are going to start forming bridge stitches, which we have been avoiding this whole time. So I went down 1 layer, I'm basically connecting this to the base, and you're just constantly doing that. You're not wrapping anymore, you're just doing wrap stitches until you get all the way to the end. Make sure these are tight because it's going to hold down the ending there. So you end up with something that looks like this, that goes all the way to the end, and then I'll show you how to completely end it. After you have done your wrap stitch a few times, you'll end up with this that's covering your core completely, and then you take your needle and you go underneath your wrap stitches. This is just tucking in your string. You can do this a few times. It is rather difficult and it gets frustrating, but I'm going to only do it once because it took a while for me to get my needle through there. Then I'm going to cut here, and then you are done with the basket.